Hello and welcome to part 10 of The Physics of Consciousness by Ivan Antic, brought to you by Transcending Ascension, but all copyrights to the author. Part 2. Consciousness in the Organic World. Manifestation of the divine consciousness of itself through the cosmos, life, and phenomena. Let us remind ourselves that the divine particle does not exist all by itself and for itself, but is merely a virtual reflection of the opposite of the divine absolute in the form of voidness. Since voidness as such cannot exist, it manifests itself as the previously mentioned divine particle, from which, by means of momentary vibrations, the entire universe and all phenomena originate. In that way, the divine absolute and the manifested universe are not different at all. They are one. The only way in which this one can exist is in the insubstantiality and momentariness of manifested phenomena. That is the only way the awareness of itself, of the divine absolute, can always, and in everything, be accessible as the consciousness of all phenomena, as the consciousness that motivates energy into motion and the shaping of all beings and phenomena. In such a way, the absolute that is everything that is manifests itself as everything that is possible. We have seen descriptions of the dimensions of nature through the traditional depiction of the elements of air, fire, water, and earth. It is a way to point to the gradual process of materialization of the divine consciousness into form and phenomena. Therefore, these elements display at the same time dimensions of existence that are not only material but unmaterial as well, more subtle and more pronounced as energy and consciousness that are the astral and mental worlds. This process starts from the ether, akasha, or the quantum field, and gets more condensed and contracted until it becomes a physical, three-dimensional phenomenon that is not only symbolically represented by the element of earth. This process also starts from the non-Hertzian frequencies of ether, which are stationary or spherical, to the Hertzian, which are characterized by the three-dimensional linear expansion of the element of earth. These processes are followed by the corresponding consciousness, which is non-Hertzian, when it is closest to the universal quantum field, ether, and as the foundation of the objective reality of nature, when it possesses the property of scalar frequencies in its entirety, and it is also the consciousness of now, or the eternal present, more accurately the timelessness. This consciousness of the quantum field best corresponds with the higher human mind, the most objective consciousness or wakefulness. Since consciousness of the quantum field corresponds with consciousness of the higher mind in the human is capable of raising awareness of the whole of nature, and it reaches awareness through the human who is a conscious subject of the overall nature. The entire process of development of the objective world starts from consciousness of the quantum field and finds its final attainment as consciousness in the human, as their higher self-consciousness. The entire manifested world is nothing but the uniting of these two consciousnesses. By all means, this is the same consciousness, but its actualization happens through the illusion of oblivion of itself, during which time it manifests all its possibilities. This actualization is what we perceive as the whole of existing life. It is hard, probably impossible, to explain rationally how and why the absolute consciousness manifests and actualizes when it is the same in everything, which is a paradox for the mind. But it is enough to say that life as we know it would be impossible if this did not happen. It is a starting point in trying to understand how and why everything works. The road from the original state of existence as ether to the objective consciousness of existence in the human is ostensibly long. It contains all the forms of existence we will present here. In reality, there is no difference between consciousness and ether, the quantum field. However, this reality manifests as all emergent universes. The human mind is the only factor that differentiates between the timeless reality of the complete unity of ether and a myriad of emergent forms that constitute the cosmos as such. One thing should be stressed here. The human mind is not the creator of emergent forms because they exist irrelevant of the mind, but the mind attributes special characteristics to all forms of existence, ones they would not otherwise have in reality, characteristics that give an illusion of the separateness of physical objects as being something in themselves and for themselves, as if the objects existed in space and are not mere modifications of space itself, the quantum field or ether. A mind is a semantical machine that gives names and meanings to all forms, without which existence would remain impersonal, and that means lifeless. The mind associates all emergent forms with the world of ideas that originated from. An emergent shape is the grossest form of existence, whereas an idea is the most subtle. But it is all the same energy. Only the frequencies set it apart, form being its grossest expression, and a thought or an idea of the shape being the most subtle frequency there is. The mind is a mechanism that unites the grossest with the most subtle frequencies, an emergent shape with the idea of it. It can also do the reverse, turn ideas into emergent shapes. The most general modification of space or ether, which is everything that is to individualize itself into everything that can be. The mind is the individualized consciousness. It does nothing but further project the individualization of consciousness, giving objects individual characteristics. In reality, there is only one individual awareness of itself, the same one that produces the individual mind that projects the individual objects. In this whole process, only one thing keeps reoccurring, and that is the individuation of consciousness within proportions growing more gradually subtle according to the model of the hologram, where each one automatically reflects the remaining ones. The mind individualizes consciousness and its objects to enable perception of all the possibilities of existence. That is all the divine consciousness of the Absolute ever does. It actualizes the awareness of itself through the individual human mind. This process projects all of the cosmos, life, and the events in it. In other words, for everything that is to be able to express itself through everything that is possible, it must individualize everything that is possible, and for that to happen, an individual consciousness must exist. A mind that implements it, without the individual mind, there are no individual things or the world of objects. We will briefly analyze the way in which the divine consciousness reaches the individual human mind here. In its original state, the divine absolute projects the awareness of itself into conscious entities or monads, which are capable of creating all possibilities. Since nothing at all is possible outside the absolute, it all happens within its imagination, making all of creation merely the imagination of the divine absolute. Subsection 22. We become aware of it once we finally awaken into the divine reality. Overall existence, we then see as a dream. With the power of its imagination, an imagination is merely a preparation of consciousness in higher dimensions for functioning in lower ones. In itself, it projects its consciousness into individual entities of consciousness or monads. Although they become individual, these entities of consciousness have all the characteristics of consciousness as the divine absolute. But due to the reasons for the practicality of functioning, these characteristics may be divided among these entities of consciousness. Some may have one, while others may have different characteristics of the consciousness that enables everything into existence. In this imagination, these monads get manifested as a multitude, even though they are one with the divine absolute, since nothing is possible outside of it. The multitude never exists except as an illusion. The illusion of the multitude is required for the manifestation of everything that is possible. It is not possible with impersonal unity. Differentiation is necessary as a condition for the functioning of a consciousness itself. Consciousness is always functionally manifested based on differentiation, some distinctions, and more than anything else for being able to tell oneself from not self, oneself from something else, and different at that. This makes everything in the universe different and unique. By differentiation or distinction, the divine consciousness actualizes itself. In its powerlessness, the divine consciousness creates all by itself the illusion of something else, something different, so as to be able to manifest itself effectively. The most general illusion of that kind is the manifested universe. The only way for it to manifest is through the illusion of a multitude of monads of consciousness, which with their multiple individualities will differentiate within the divine unity, the multitude of forms and phenomena. By doing so, the monads of consciousness that originated from the divine absolute create all the emergent universes with their individuality. There is no objective creation of the world. There is only a process of individualization of the divine consciousness, which with its individualization splits the divine unity into an illusion of individual phenomena, or a multitude of objects. Creation is in fact merely realizing the distinction between everything existing and the modification into all the possibilities of existence. Subsection 23. There is not a single mention in the Old Testament of God creating the world. A detailed analysis of the original language in which the Old Testament was written reveals that the issue is only with the division of existence, the organization of it. For more information, see the work by Mario Biglino. Bible is not a holy book. The divine absolute is incapable of creation, since it is already everything that is. The one who is everything that is cannot further create anything else, because everything is already created. Everything is itself. On the most profound level of existence, everything already exists and nothing new is possible. Only the wholeness of the divine absolute exists as the source and the sum of everything that could exist. Individual monads of consciousness therefore create nothing new. They only sort out and implement the process of differentiating everything that is possible within the divine itself, and by so doing they actualize consciousness of the divine absolute. The process of distinction or differentiation is the process of awareness, because the very possibility of something being different comes from the one that exceeds or transcends that which is consciousness. It is what the divine absolute does with the monads of consciousness. It does not create anything new, because within it everything is already immanent. It merely differentiates or tells apart all of its options, hence actualizing its transcendental consciousness that is actualized in all possibilities, in everything. Consciousness of itself is actualized. Entities of the divine consciousness, or monads, are more commonly known as souls to us. However, this is not completely accurate. Monads are so much more than people can address as the experience of souls in this earthly experience. Monads are oversouls, or the common source of a larger number of souls. The same way a growing tree branches out into more numerous and tinier twigs, the monads too branch out into tinier entities of divine consciousness known as the souls to us here. Each soul has an oversoul that in turn has its higher oversoul, all the way up to the divine source. This branching out of one source of consciousness is welcomed because of the differentiation of consciousness itself and the act of creativity as a way of experiencing all potentials. There is a collective performance on entities of the divine consciousness. The same way there is an individual one, the collective performance is best understood when one monad of consciousness divides into many smaller oversouls in order to be able to experience some specific group of experiences. during the incarnations of several individual souls in bodies in a specific space and time. In such a way, humans communities are formed. Whole tribes and nations who live in a specific place and during a certain historical setting experience certain topic of progress and creation and various possibilities of expression. It is viewed as a specific epoch or a certain culture of some people, or an event in which several nations are involved, and they all come from the same oversoul or oversouls. Individual performance is when a soul is divided into a few physical individuals to be able to acquire a certain group of experiences faster. These individuals may know each other in everyday life, but then again, they may not. They may recognize one another as soulmates, but they might very well be bitter enemies, depending on the role they were assigned to play while experiencing the karmic drama. The most general collective performance of individual consciousnesses is the projection of the physical cosmos. Some very old souls were the first to project this cosmos we live in, and that is why it exists following the physical laws of the element of earth more than anything. Sufficient inertia is present to maintain the shapes so that young souls may experience them as well. They find the already existing material forms upon their incarnation and leave new forms for the generations that follow. Slowness and inertia of the physical world exist to enable ideas to become true as concrete objects in all possible aspects, many times over and with a myriad of individual consciousnesses involved. This is not possible in higher dimensions. Everything is momentary there and united into one. All souls together maintain the physical universe, although the material cosmos is in effect a momentary, unsubstantial illusion. It is coherent and stable enough to sustain life. Stabilizing the cosmos for the kind of life we are familiar with has its scale in accordance with the dimensions and proportions it gradually develops and becomes solid in all of the experiences. This gradualism is the factor that creates all versatility of experience in the emergent cosmic forms, in mineral plant and animal species. Consciousness as elements and minerals. In its elementary expression, the creativity of consciousness of the divine particle is reflected in the simplest forming of elements. Elements are the first and basic standard form of energy vibrations. Vibrations cannot always be different, for then there would be only chaos. They must be stabilized and become solid in a sense so as to enable further creative forming. When the right vibration is found, the one that is able to keep an element is formed. Elements are merely a collection of acceptable and sustainable vibrational forms, or more accurately, energy, that can keep, renew, and transform into new and more complex forms. In such a way, consciousness probes all possible forms of energy vibrations composing the world from elementary particles, atoms, and minerals, and all non-organic elements. All possible combinations of frequencies are at work here that make up subatomic particles, atoms, and molecules, as well as all possible combinations of particles, atoms, and molecules. Fractal geometry shows us the design of these frequencies. There is a common belief that the earth we walk on is a conscious being. This shows the way in which this statement is true. The world of minerals is an expression of the intelligent design of consciousness or souls. Of all the elements, water is the most transparent for the presence of the divine consciousness. Water is not only one of the elements, but it is also a unity of consciousness and elementary nature. That is why water does not have a permanent shape. It conducts consciousness in all other shapes. It is the only element that affects all other elements. This makes water the necessary precondition for life. That is why water has physical properties that are a characteristic of the quantum world. It reacts to thoughts and neighboring frequencies. It remembers all the shapes and informational influences it was exposed to, both physical and mental, and acts the way consciousness would act in its most elementary form. Water unites consciousness with the elements, making it the foundation of life that is present in all living beings, and in a percentage much higher than all other elements. All beings have both life and perception owing to the presence of water in them. The element of water in our being enables our perception. The world of minerals and elements is the densest foundation for the further manifestation of other forms of individuation, of consciousness. It is the ground everything else happens on, and the basis for all organic life and the world of events. Consciousness perfects perception through plant life. The next expression of the experience of consciousness goes through more complex shaping that creates the organic world. The most basic organic shapes are living cells that unite and create various kinds of symbiosis and bigger organisms. All the bigger living organisms are simply symbiosis of basic cells. All big living organisms, the same as human bodies, are only the symbiosis of cells that were bacteria once. Such complex symbiosis can be made possible only by an outer influence of creative consciousness, under the influence of some field, pattern, plan, or conscious intention. The cells themselves do not have the necessary consciousness for such a union. After the mineral world, plants originated as an expression of a need for more complex shaping, which will not be simply a combination of all the possible inert shapes, like elements and minerals, but they will have some of the basic possibilities of simple motions and perception. Plants adapt to their environment, showing creative consciousness in their forming. Most plant species were created by souls in higher dimensions. Many plant species act as proof of the fact they could not have originated by themselves following the laws of simple evolution. Although there are such species as well that evolved by adjusting to the climate and the environment, for a great many species, intelligent design is a prerequisite they were not able to have and which cannot be gained through the evolutionary process, such as, for example, the perfect knowledge of aerodynamics that makes some plants have seeds that can fly far away, such as maple, for instance. To be able to grow and survive, plants had to have the knowledge beforehand of how to release their seeds into the wind to make them fly far away, of how to attract insects to pollinate them, since using only their smell and color proved to be insufficient. So much so they had to use the imitation of the pheromone of female insects as well. Higher consciousness is required, otherwise the plant in question could not make it to the next generation. In plants, the divine consciousness experiences possibilities of a more progressive forming that is not possible in the material world, in a most rudimentary motion that is dominantly passive and stimulated by outer influences. The divine consciousness that enables everything for the first time creates its perception in plants in the physical world. That is why plants live on water in sunlight, sense and perceive, have non-local communication, bond emotionally with other beings, and feel the states of living organisms in their surroundings, especially in people. Subsection 24. On the research into plants, see Cleve Baxter, Primary Perception, Biocommunication with Plants, Living Foods, and Human Cells. Peter Tompkins and Christopher Bird, The Secret Life of Plants, a fascinating account of the physical, emotional, and spiritual relationships between plants and man. It is well-known fact that plants grow more harmoniously when nice music is playing for them, but it is a less well-known fact that plants themselves create music. Subsection 25. Using two electrodes, one on the leaf and the other on the root system, the electric potential of the plant is monitored with the electric circuit, which is connected to the analog digital converter that, by using the synthesizer, conveys the electric impulses of plants into music. Dam in her community near Taranto in Italy, where research of this kind is being conducted, stages plant concerts. Apart from creating music, plants can be connected in this way with devices that regulate light and water flow, marking them self-sufficient. On the music of the plants, see The Music of the Plants by Silvia Baffagni Asperide Ananas. Tree trunks are antennas connecting the earth to the cosmos. They communicate with the stars. They communicate with people who are aware enough to have communication of this kind. Those who can sense in their bodies the mild signals containing simple messages, always amicable and full of affection. Some trees can also heal people when they are touched, but only the lucky few who are able to connect this gift. To accept this gift, plants have in them the cure for every disease and all the food people need. Plants experience the purest perception of consciousness that forms all of nature. Consciousness in plants is always in a state defined in Patanjali's yoga as samhati. Some older souls that finalize their incarnation cycle sometimes treat themselves to a blessed incarnation as a tree.